Alright, here's the before of the Disney month of November. So, I'm gonna give it a 2 pilots for this video. And here's a special thanks to Sean PVS 101 Incredibles fanboy. That he said The Incredibles and Incredibles 2 are his favorite incredibly Pixar films. Yep, I meant to say that. So, Sean PVS 101 Incredibles fanboy, if you're watching this is for you, pal. It's time to celebrate the 15th anniversary to the amazing Pixar film, no other than The Incredibles. Let's get started. Here's the plot for this film. We have Bob Parr, aka Mr. Incredible, who liked to do the glory days to take out the robbers. And then we have Helen Parr, aka Elastigirl, who liked to take down the robbers. And here we have Lucius Bess, aka Frozone, who liked to freeze the robbers and arrest. And then who they meet, Mr. Incredible Jr., aka Incrediboy, meant to be known as Right Before Syndrome. And then suddenly happens to meet Bon Voyage, which is another bad guy. And then they decide to take it away and defeat the robbers. And then, which suddenly happens is when Bob Parr is finally getting married to Helen Parr. And then suddenly happens is when the news says government hides heroes and then superheroes don't want it and need anymore in the city. Oh, poorly gone. But in 15 years later, when Bob Parr is taken to work from InsureCare, and then when Parrs have 3 kids named Dash, Violet, and Jack, and they have some family all over the random stuff, and then Dash and Violet get out of schools. And then finally for the after school talks, when they done in the afternoon, and then the Parrs and eating some dinner, and then suddenly happens this when Bob Parr meet his best friend named Lucius Bess. He liked to do bowling, but which suddenly happens is there's a fire around the building, and then the disguised as the robbers, and then wants to help to save the falling people falling down. And then which suddenly happens is when Bob and Lucius saw a securities, and then they disguise as the robbers, and then Lucius Bess freezes the police officer, and then they ran away and escaped. And then Bob Parr wanted to talk about Helen Parr, and then why government hides heroes. But they decide to do another day, and then we have Mr. Humph. When Mr. Humph is pretty mad, and then they say, "I'm not happy, Bob." Not happy. Mr. Humph is a pretty funny character. He is a pretty funny character. And here we have sometime when Bob gets fired from InsureCare. And then they meet with the new character named Rick. Yeah. When Rick is only a professional character. He's a legendary. And then, which suddenly happens is when Rick wants to talk about Bob, he's finally getting fired from InsureCare. And then Bob doesn't want to get InsureCare anymore. And then they meet with Mirage, who talks just look like inside in the iPad. Sort of like. And then we have to find a way for the new jobs for superheroes. And then they decide to take a step back and to try to defeat the Armadroid in the island. And then they're all done defeating the Armadroid, and then they decide to take care of the delicious course meals for dinner in Nomazin Island with Mirage. And then we have Life's an Incredible again. Life's an Incredible again. And then They all have a good montages, and then Bob Parr has lose some weight and burning fat. And then he decided to take an appointment for superheroes to talk with Mrs. Edna Mode, which is another main character. And then when Edna Mode says, "No capes!" Ha 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 ha. That catchphrase is so funny. And then Bob Parr founds his new super suit. It's completely infinite awesome. And then he's taking a break from Nomasin Island with Mirage. And then finally happens is when Helen Parr wants to call Edna Mode to find Bob Parr. And then which suddenly happens is when Mr. Incredible meets Syndrome. And then which suddenly happens is when Mr. Incredible wants to find a way for the Chronos, and then Helen Parr wants to find the new super suits for the good idea. And then suddenly happens is when Mr. Incredible wants to find a way for the password for Chronos, and then when suddenly happens is when Mr. Incredible wants to escape for the Nomasin Island, but he can't when Syndrome wants to talk. And then suddenly happens is when Helen Parr wants to talk about the kids. And then they decide to take away into the Find to its island. And then suddenly happens is when the kids and Helen Parr want to get ready to swim faster. And then they run into the Nomasin Island. And then suddenly happens is to find a way to find his dad. And which suddenly happens is when some random thing happens, and then Dash and Violet wants to defeat the baddies, and Helen Parr is finally free to Bob Parr and then give it a hug. Wow. And then suddenly when Bob and Helen and the kids who like to run, and then they decide to defeat the big Armadroid, and including Syndrome. And then, which suddenly happens is when Frozone says, "Honey, what? Where's my super suit? What? Where is my super suit?" Ha 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 ha. That was one of the funniest catchphrases. Let's continue the plot. Alrighty, here goes. The Incredibles, named Bob, Helen, Dash, and Violet, who like to defeat the big bad Armadroid. And then, which suddenly happens is when Frozone is here to save the city. And then suddenly happens is when Bob Parr wants to froze the Armadroid's hand to defeat the big bad Armadroid's heart and then come to explode. And then they finally free from the city. And then suddenly happens is when Jack is scared of Syndrome. And then suddenly happens is when Helen Parr wants to be safe from Jack. And then suddenly happens is when Mr. Incredible throws the sports car and then boom into the Syndrome. And then when Dash liked to do some sporting from 100-yard dash in sprint. And then they saved the day in the city. And then suddenly happens is when, behold, the Underminer! Underminer is here from the sequel. And then here's the part 2 is coming up. And that's pretty much the plot. What have I heard of this film? Ah, yes! It's the Incredibly masterpiece. I watched it as a kid. That time I really loved it. The animation is completely awesome. It's incredible. The story, really awesome. And the characters, we have Bob Parr, also known as Mr. Incredible, the main character. He is awesome! And here we have Helen Parr, aka Elastigirl, which is another main character. She's awesome! And here we have Dash. Dash is awesome. I like Dash. And here we have Violet Parr. Violet Parr looks so awesome. And here we have Jack. Jack is so cute and adorable. And here we have Mirage. Mirage looks so pretty. And here we have Edna Mode. Edna Mode looks so awesome. And here we have the best villain of them all, Syndrome. Wow, he played the legendary Jason Lee. And then, all the other characters are pretty awesome. And especially the Michael Giacchino music scores look so awesome! It's incredibly awesome in the first film. And in the second film, oh boy, cannot wait to do a review on the second film tomorrow. As for negatives, none. Overall, it gets a 10 out of 10. Amazing, brilliant masterpiece. My favorite animated film of 2004. Oh wow, 11 minutes long. Oh boy. Hope you all enjoy, and stay tuned for tomorrow of The Incredibles 2 movie review.